Coming up on Currently, we dive deep into the world of rural townships with special guest journalist Austin Rowlader. Plus, Beth Milligan shares road commission news and another edition of the Retail and Restaurant Roundup. That's all ahead on Currently. Welcome to Currently, where we discuss some of the top local stories directly from the journalists who are covering them. I'm your host, Crystal Frost. This podcast was recorded on Thursday, October 30th. The Lions had a bye week, so we remain 5-2 as we face the 3-4 Vikings on Sunday afternoon. Support for Currently comes from West Shore Bank. When you choose West Shore Bank, you're not just choosing a bank, you're choosing a partner committed to the well-being of our community. Visit them today on 8th Street or at westshorebank.com. Support also comes from Old Town Playhouse, where community comes together in downtown Traverse City. Find out about all the upcoming shows, including the Rocky Horror Show, at oldtownplayhouse.com. And from the Coin Slot Arcade Bar in Traverse City, a chill hangout boasting a variety of beer, live music, and pinball in downtown Traverse City. Now, we are very excited to welcome a first-time Currently guest journalist. Austin Rowlader is here. He's a freelance journalist, frequently contributing to Bridge and Interlochen Public Radio, and regularly reporting for the Antrim Review. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So great to have you here. Plus, our Currently co-host and the head writer of The Ticker, here as always, Beth Milligan. I was joking earlier that I'm always surprised when you let me keep coming back here. So thank you.
Well, yeah, it's mutual. We'll just keep rolling along together.
We're just going to keep rolling along. I love it. We have a big show today. This is going to be good stuff. I've been for a long time wanting to get into the world of Antrim County, so I'm really excited to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for people who don't know you, maybe a little about your background and what you do?
Yeah. I've been in journalism for a total of about 1.5 years now.
Nice.
I spent, let's call it 16, 17 years writing terrible novels. And I finally finished one that I thought was pretty good. And then I kind of decided that I need to put my writing skills to work somewhere else. And so I've been fiercely seeking the truth since then. And so I do a lot of writing, which is really fun, really detail-oriented, strong stuff. But then I get to go on the radio as well and just talk about these interesting stories where you get to put people's voices on the air that you're not used to hearing in your everyday life. It's a thrill to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a thrill. I love that. Do you have you've been in journalism for, I know you're only 22, but you've been doing it for about what?
About 20 years,
30 years?
So, since when I was just a baby. Yes.
Yeah. Any advice for someone who's kind of new, a year and a half in, 20 plus years in?
Well, I'm sure, I don't feel like I should be giving anyone advice because I think everyone does a little bit differently. But also, I think what probably you'll have already experienced is that there's such a great collaborative of journalists up here in Northern Michigan. In a lot of markets, it can be really competitive. And I think there's a little friendly competition sometimes, but it's just so supportive. And I certainly, go on IPR comes on Currently, like everybody kind of works together. So I would say anytime you need anything, not being afraid to reach out to other journalists in the area, because I find it's a group that works really well together up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I've used your reporting in my reporting on a regular basis.
So I paid him to say that. Yes.
No way.
No, thank you.
The truth. Everybody that reads your stuff knows that.
Yeah, I love
appreciate
it.
that.
Oh, that's so sweet. Look, it's all just warm and fuzzy. And news.
Yeah, cut to the news.
We're going to talk a couple of stories that you wrote recently about townships. And I'm going to start with a story that came out actually the day of where we're recording on Thursday. And this came out in the Antrim Review about Banks Township. Now, Banks Township is in Ellsworth. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Now, they're thinking about removing all of the zoning ordinances, which have been in place since 1975 in the township. Why don't we talk a little bit about what that means? What do you mean removing all the zoning ordinances?
Yeah, so townships have laws that dictate how people can utilize their properties. And they have certain rules that you can follow. And then if you don't want to follow those rules, you apply for being able to go around the rules and do what,
a special land use permit.
Special use permit, exactly. And so basically what has happened in Banks Township is 3 new township officials have moved in and decided to get rid of all of the zoning in the township. And so when people are thinking about what they can do on their property, They now have almost no rules. I mean, the county rules apply, also state laws apply, but the local laws no longer apply. Well, let's not say no longer. The townships is in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah, right.
About
so they
this.
could potentially no longer apply. And I'm always used to, Beth writes a lot of stories about zoning. I'm used to like the understanding of, sort of this is zoned residential, this is zoned commercial. But in this story in particular, you're talking about expanding maybe a coal mining operation. So talk a little bit about the differing zoning situations that people could see. Really kind of wild, wild west at that point. Like you could do anything anywhere. There's really no zoning anymore in Banks Township should this initiative go through.
Yeah, that's the interesting part about this is that at the center point of the whole story is this 180-acre gravel mine. Gravel mine. Yep, that Marv Rubing is proposing to build, and it is it's about 1,500 feet from St. Clair Lake, which is at the headwaters of the chain of lakes, which runs from 6 Mile Lake up kind of near Ellsworth, up and down Antrim County, and then out in Elk Rapids. And so this would have a huge effect on the watershed, from the top of the watershed all the way down to the bottom of the watershed. And the reason, we're not sure of the motivations of Marv Rubing, but he has applied 3 different times for special use permits to be able to build a mine like this, and has been told no every single time. And so him and Rich Frisky and Julie Chellis are the 3 new board members. And the first thing that they did when they walked onto the board basically is to remove all of the zoning. And so the township is in uproar because they feel like these 3 powerful people have moved into the government and basically decided that they're going to remove the rules so that they can do whatever they want.
And I saw in your story too, it is an interesting story when you get political figures making decisions that potentially personally benefit them. It can always be challenging. Even if it's legal, it obviously raises the specter of ethical issues or conflicts of interest. And it sounds like, just reading your story, it's not just Rubing, that Julie and her husband also own land that could potentially be used for this type of mining too, right? So that does raise a question of, you have to have that conversation of like, are these decisions being made for the benefit of the people on the board? Are they truly to the benefit of the township, which can be a thorny issue to explore.
And I think it's important to note too, though, that, these folks were elected, right? So the people who elected them are their peers, are their neighbors. They're folks that said, okay, we're going to vote for you to join this board. And when you say that maybe people are just sort of surprised that these are some of the first actions that maybe feel a little bit more personal than maybe a priority for the entire township, what are these individuals saying about their motivations here? Are they talking about personal motivations, or are they, speaking more in broad terms of, freedom in private land use?
Yeah, that's kind of the dichotomy they're working on. So on one hand, Rich Frisky said that he is doing this because there is a lot of vitriol in the deliberations on the Planning Commission that kind of like administers the zoning laws, and it's driving a wedge in the community. Marv Rubing says that he just basically wants to provide the community with gravel, and he sees the current zoning laws as restricting his freedoms to do that. Julie Chellis, she is the swing vote, and she says that she basically came into politics because she never wanted to be in this position, is her claim, and that she came into politics kind of like on a whim, and now she's kind of been blasted in the face with all this. Wow, I don't know she wasn't expecting to have to make such a big decision, but there are also a lot of family ties in this. Everybody's familiar with the Friskies probably, but the Rubings are another locally powerful family. Jairus Rubing is on the Antrim County Commission. They own over 2,000 acres in Banks Township. And then Julie Chellis, she's pretty new to the game, but she also is the wife of somebody that's on the Planning Commission. And so when you get into these rural townships, especially in Antrim County, there are brothers and sisters and friends and wives, and all of that is interacting in this ecosystem that Banks Township is just going to have to go through a really difficult conversation right now.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's, that we could probably say that is the case in a lot of these rural townships where, quite frankly, it can be hard to convince people to want to serve in this leadership capacity. Most of the time it's volunteer only. So if you have folks that are, maybe running for these sorts of offices, sometimes it can be hard to get any sort of competitor in a vacancy, right? Mm-hmm. I know even in these very, very small townships where you will see full families serving in different capacities, quite frankly, because there's not a lot of population. So, I mean, I'm seeing that, and then you start to see the real issue of the private personal interest. And, how the township ensures that decisions about zoning are not influenced by board members' personal financial interests. And Beth, you've covered a lot of this too. Most of the time in governing bodies, there is an opportunity for someone to say, I have a personal interest in this. Mm-hmm. I have a conflict of interest. Does that seem to play out here at all?
Yeah, I mean, it may be, Austin can probably speak to it for Banks. I mean, in a lot of areas, they either don't have ethical policies on the books or they're murky. Legally, what you can do is pretty wide because it's difficult to remove elected officials from positions. Understandably, they've been chosen by the voters, so it's a difficult process that typically involves either a recall or a gubernatorial intervention. So what often happens is it's really up to the voters to decide what they will accept as ethical behavior. And if they don't like what someone is doing on a board, they would vote them out in the next election. Right. But beyond that, there's not a ton of legal restrictions on decision making for boards, including, prioritizing their own personal interests. And that's pretty much at every level of government up to the federal, level, seeing the same kind of controversies at that level. So that is a real issue. It really comes down to what voters are going to be comfortable with.
Right.
There is a point to be made there too. I found out that 94% of the elections for clerks and treasurers in the whole state are unopposed.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
that's interesting.
we rely on the functions of democracy to kind of vet what's going to be happening in these places with some of the most powerful positions. Mm-hmm. But you're right, nobody's running for the positions. There's no other options. And
in some cases, yeah, absolutely. I was curious when I read your story, and I was able to read it before it came out, so thank you for that. I always love doing that. I was curious as to whether or not other townships and even counties in the state maybe who don't have county zoning ordinances. And I was really interested. It was interesting to me to find out that both Marquette County and Missaukee County, they only have a master plan, but they don't have zoning ordinances. So to play sort of the flip side of this conversation, is it really a big deal to get away, to remove all the zoning ordinances? I'm kind of thinking if you've ever walked into an old town, and you're like, how did they build that and that there? There's two things that are right there. Or Traverse City, a long time ago, we had a power plant right on the bay,
Mm-hmm.
So there were just a lot of things that were built in places here in 2025 that you would go, why would you ever do that? And zoning laws started to, remove some of those things from happening. But just to play devil's advocate here, what would be the big deal without having zoning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. So the first thing is that it's kind of zoning is kind of expensive.
Sure.
You have to pay these officials to deliberate what things can and can't happen in your township. And so that's what a lot of people's grift with it is, I think. But then beyond that, it kind of depends where you are. Banks Township is at the headwaters of the chain of lakes.
Right.
And so anything that happens there is going to impact what happens downriver.
Right.
But just next to them, Central Lake Township, they have no zoning ordinances. Okay. And I've written about them extensively. Their township government is not run well at all. And that's just kind of a blatant fact based on the audits that I've looked through. But they don't have, weekly planning commission meetings. They don't have people coming in, knocking on the doors and saying, I don't like, can I not have this? Can I please have this?
Yeah.
And so it makes a big difference on how those deliberations go. And that's what Rich Frisky said, is that it's driven a wedge in the community. And so there is that argument to be made. But I also, I think that in the big picture, zoning protects people, and it does limit some freedoms, but it does a lot more to protect what can and can't happen. If you bought a house here, you just spent all your money on it, and 3 months later, somebody moves next door and has lights going 24 hours a day. There's huge trucks driving back and forth just on the other end of the driveway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough spot to be in, and zoning is the thing that keeps that from happening in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and personal freedoms are not supposed to impose on someone else,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's like the philosophical heart of zoning is that, typically people want the freedom to do what they want with their own property, but then might not necessarily like what their neighbor is doing with their property. And so to Austin's point, these are usually zoning's in place to protect the environment. It's in place to protect property values. It's in place to ensure regulation of safety and health concerns. And when you lack it, you can often get haphazard development that can either be unsafe or intrusive to neighbors or have any number of unintended impacts. So there certainly are parts of the country where you don't have zoning in place. I think you often see that there are unintended consequences of that, and often more legal situations, more lawsuits, because people, that's the only way they have of recourse to dispute how someone's using their land next to them if it's impacting them, is to file a lawsuit. So it can create a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, and I would say too, we have also run into stories where maybe there was too much zoning and it was impacting, private citizens, businesses, people who were saying, I don't want this anymore, and they go through the channels to change it. Kind of before we move on here, how many people are on this Banks Township board?
On the board of trustees, there's 5 members, and then the planning commission also has 5 members.
So realistically, if you have these 3 members that are thinking about removing the zoning, you mentioned that there was one swing vote in Julie Chellis, but what happens if you have 2, maybe 2 people who say one way or 2? I'm wondering, how sure of a thing is this if you've got 5 members and 3 of them are all pro this?
Yeah, so the board of trustees has already voted to remove all zoning laws.
Okay.
The next step in the process, we're actually working to confirm what the process actually is. It's hard. It isn't, it's not just laid out. There's pages and pages you have to go through. But where we are right now is the board of trustees has voted that they don't want zoning anymore.
Right.
It's sent to the planning commission, and then the planning commission has set a public hearing date. And as far as we can tell, after the public hearing, the planning commission will vote to then send it back up to the board of the board of trustees. But yeah, the numbers are important here because you have 5 people on these boards. 3 people is enough to make basically anything happen. And so we have Frisky and Chellis and Rubing all voting yes, but Frisky is on the planning commission.
Okay.
Chellis is married to somebody on the planning commission. So that's basically 2 out of the 3 people that you need to basically pass anything that you want within the township that have made their way onto the board.
It's a really interesting position to be in, I would say, for sure. So like you said, next steps are it's going to go back to the zoning board, and then we're going to just kind of...
Well, there's going to be a public hearing.
Public hearing.
Yeah, November 18 at the Banks Township Hall.
Yeah.
You'll have to look online. I believe it's 6:00. It's November 18 at 6:00. And it is as action-packed as anything you can see in the world of politics.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's in Washington, D.C. or in Banks Township. This is the real deal right here.
Well, we'll have to check in with you to see how that goes. Thank you for that story. If anyone wants to read more about that, people can find the story at, is it antrimreview.net?
Yep, you have to subscribe to the Antrim Review. It's a great newspaper
and
to
you
get
should
involved
subscribe.
in.
Support local journalism.
Yes.
And that. They do a great job. They send people to these meetings. I mean, my first assignment was just go to this meeting. They don't care if it's newsworthy or not. They want people to be on the ground at these public meetings, telling the public what happens, even if it's really boring, even if they're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's important. We
That's
don't really
important.
hear about that very often.
That's the
we
role
hear
of the
about
journalist.
townships when, the world is collapsing in
Right.
that township, but they do a really good job of just making sure they're there for the citizens.
For sure. We are going to move on to another story that you wrote, and this one is about townships as well. This one was featured in Bridge, and I love Bridge. It's one of my favorite places to go for news, bridgemi.com. For those of you who are interested in that. And this is kind of a different conversation, but it's still involving rural townships and how you found that financial mismanagement in northern Michigan townships is happening a lot. A lot of audits of small town governments across northern Michigan have revealed widespread mismanagement and governance failures, especially in Star Township, which is in Antrim County, and in Central Lake Township, which you alluded to. Tell us a little bit about, what you found in this story, and give us the deets. Spill the tea.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the most important thing about this is probably the fact that your township government has an outsized effect on your life than any other government that you interact with.
And I don't think people really realize that.
No, it's so funny. People are so concerned about what's happening at the federal level. I mean, that the federal government has just lights out and shut down for a month, and it is having an impact and is going to have an impact on people. But if your township government were to go lights out and not operating, you would feel those impacts so much faster. They're the people that fix your roads. They decide on your sidewalks, your sewers, your fresh water. Everything is a township government issue. And so when we talk about, possible corruption and some shady businesses and family members interacting financially within the township without any record of it, we're talking about some of the most important facets of the government that there are in America. Right. And I think that's a main point. So let's get into some details about what's happening in Star Township.
Yeah, Star Township is in Antrim County. Can you tell me take me there? What are the closer villages and cities in Star Township?
Elba is the main village. This is, let's see, I'm going to say 10 miles north of Mansalona on 131. It's a very small place. There's they just opened a coffee shop, and then there's a bar called the Green Lantern.
I've got some history with the Green Lantern.
Please.
My great-great-grandparents owned it.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
I know. So let's go to Star Township, baby.
It's a biker bar. I mean, what was it?
Actually, my great-grandparents owned it, and it was a biker bar then, too.
It was a biker bar then. You're great. But we're talking like a 1960s biker bar.
Yeah, it was. It was even before then. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool. My grandpa, my uncles took my grandpa in there, and he was able to sit there. But he used to be behind the bar when he was a teenager. This is really cool. But so going to Star Township.
Yeah, we're there already.
Yeah.
So there's about, I think, 1,100 people that live there in the township. It's all rural. It's a one. They just put a stoplight in. This last year there wasn't one forever, so you wouldn't even stop while you're going through. And basically what's happened is the township and the fire department. It's actually not the fire department. I'm going to read some words.
It's like a fire board,
Yeah,
right?
This is what the audit said. The township's fire services are currently operated by a group of individuals who call themselves the Star Township Fire Board.
Okay.
The Star Township Fire Board is not a separate legal entity from Star Township. But the township is handing over about $250,000 a year. Ballpark estimate, we're not sure. They haven't filed an audit in 3 years. But in 2022, they forked over $250,000 to the township board, to the fire board.
Okay.
But it was almost first of all, it's not a legal
there's no
movement
legal
of
standing
money.
because it's self-appointed, kind of.
And the clerk of the township and the chief of the fire board are married.
Oh, that's conflict of interest.
There is, in the fire
Okay.
board. I mean, their audit from 2022, which is the most recent one you can get, just has a litany of misdeeds going on between
So
the
these
township.
are independent auditors that are coming in and auditing this, and these are their findings that you're reporting on. So in the township you just mentioned, they haven't submitted audits to the Michigan Treasury since 2023. So you're looking at 3 years there, which puts state revenue sharing at risk. Well, what happens when auditors say, hey, there's maybe potential mismanagement of funds? I mean, what's the next step with that?
Yeah, it's very interesting what happens. So if the township goes over budget, they are automatically going to be interacting with the Department of Treasury. And at that point, the Department of Treasury issues a letter to them saying they want a description and basically an answer to all the deficiencies that the auditor outlined. But if they manage to keep it within budget, then they're not really going to interact with the Department of Treasury. And so you can go a long ways as a township if you just keep your budget clean and do whatever you want behind closed doors. But in the cases of the most mismanaged ones, they're probably going to be interacting with the Department of Treasury. And from there, they have to send an answer for every single thing that the auditor outlined. It goes back to the Department of Treasury. They've received it, but there's no real action after that. I've seen instances like in Central Lake Township where there are years of really poor audits, and they're all in the township, or excuse me, in the Department of Treasury system, but there isn't really any actions. And these places, they don't receive the type of state. So they receive statutory state funding, but they don't receive the other type of state funding that would be stopped if they don't file their audit. So there's no financial reckoning. There's no the Department of Treasury can order an audit from the Treasury that the township would have to pay for, but I've never heard of that happening. And so there really isn't any recourse from the state government. They were relying on people to vote ineffective out.
Relying on people to vote people out. We've already talked about the difficulty in getting people to want to run for some of these positions. And specifically, if it feels as though you have Star Township has 1,100 people, you probably know every one of them.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, I'm going to unseat you because I think that you're doing something that's improper. That's a tough spot to be in. So do you think that sometimes the neighbors, the community members here just go, well, maybe it's not hurting anyone?
I think that the concerned ones get up the gumption to run for a position, and there are many stories of like changes in guard that happen because people are frustrated with how their township is working.
I think one that you wrote about was my parents live in Green Lake Township. And that is in Grand Traverse County. They've really, really shown some progress with correcting some issues.
Yeah, they're I don't remember exactly what their issues were, but their auditor outlined a number of things that were a problem. The board worked with their lawyers and the auditor to figure out how to fix those problems, and they fixed it. And we looked at 10 of the biggest municipalities in Michigan and found that they have kind of the same problems that these smaller townships have.
Right.
The only difference is that they take care of them faster. They have these staffs that will work with lawyers, they'll work with other people so they can get the systems in place so they don't have to be attacked by their auditor year after year.
Right. Oh, I get that. So, as far as your township system, though, it is built on small local control. And if you're talking about facing, these competency and oversight crises, but you quite frankly just don't have the people to help, you're just kind of continue down this rabbit hole. Sort of.
Yeah, you're getting at the solution here, I think, a little bit. And I've thought a lot about this, and it's up to the people.
It's up to the voters.
This is the democracy. Like if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, this is wild. Go look at you're in a township. You can run for the board.
Yeah.
It's getting on as a trustee is kind of the lowest stakes place you can go. You end up in the meetings. You get to vote on something, and it's just about more people getting involved.
Yeah. Did you talk to any of, as you were talking about this in Star Township, and you were talking about, the township clerk being married to the fire chief, and, we know that in Central Lake Township, you've had some officials that were married to one another. Do they have any comment about how, that might be a conflict, or maybe you need to recuse yourself from a lot of these conversations because of your relationship? Do they have any comment on that?
Yeah, so in Central Lake Township, the clerk and the treasurer are married.
Okay.
And that the clerk and the treasurer handle all of the finances. The treasurer handles the finances coming in, the clerk handles the finances going out. And they're married together, and there's very little oversight. And their auditor has harped on this for years. And I asked Larry Germain, the treasurer, what he thought about some accusations of nepotism that the department or the Downtown Development Authority levied on them. And he just said that it's because he's an elected official, nepotism accusations don't apply to him.
Okay.
Because he's, people chose him to be there. But the thing is, too, is that they have different last names. And I asked them about that as well. And they said resounding, well, everybody knows that we're married. But it's hard to tell if that's true or not. But it is a problem in almost, I'm not going to say all of the places within township governments that I've seen that have problems, that there are family ties,
Right.
but most townships up here it's a family or affair in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it seems like it. So, I mean, as getting to the, when I'm a real results, like how do we fix this kind of person?
Yeah.
And what you say is for the people who live in those townships, pay attention. And if this is something that you're not comfortable with, vote. Maybe offer to run against some folks and run on this idea that you are going to have more transparency, that there will be more checks and balances systems that are working in. Because ultimately, the money that we're working with, I mean, the money is coming from the neighbors, right? It's coming from you. You live there. You pay taxes. That's how it works.
Yeah, I mean there's an easier way to get into it too. I mean, you can just go to these meetings. You can figure out when they are. They're monthly, third Wednesday, whenever it is. Just go to the meetings, show up there, and watch what happens. Because in some of these places, they do an amazing job. It's no lie. I mean, you walk in and you can tell that these people are professional. They're trying their best to make the communities that they represent better. That is, if not the majority, close to the majority. But at the same time, you might walk into your township office and be blown away by what you find. And those places need help. They need somebody that can come in and finances, bring this thing together so that their communities can become better through the small governments that we have affecting them.
It's not like any sort of allegation that any misdeeds are being done, but the reality is the people need to check up. It's that sort of verification process of like, how's my money doing? What is it? Where's it going toward? I want to check in on that and verify with the people that are elected. So yeah, thank you so much for that story. And again, if you want to read more about it, it's a great story. Just go to bridgemi.com and you can look for the story from Austin. And you are a part of the Northern Michigan Journalism Collaborative. So you'll see that in the byline as well. But you're going to be looking for short-staffed, untrained, many Michigan townships struggle to control finances. Great story. Before we move on with more news, yay! How about a word for our title sponsor, our headlining sponsor, West Shore Bank. Now, we talk a lot about taking control of our time, our health, even our social media feeds. But what about our money? West Shore Bank wants to make that part a little easier with their 5 to Thrive Budget Challenge. It's a simple 5-step journey to help you build healthy financial habits that actually stick. This isn't your typical budgeting lecture. It's interactive, practical, and made for real life. You're going to learn how to understand where your money really goes, build confidence with digital banking tools, and set goals that actually feel doable. You can work at your own pace with short quizzes, worksheets, and tools that help you create your own money action plan. It all starts with one easy step, tracking your spending. Just take the first quiz and you're on your way. At West Shore Bank, they believe financial wellness should be simple, achievable, and rewarding. So why not start today? Learn more at westshorebank.com. All right, we are going to move on here, and we're going to talk about road projects. Road funding, road projects. I do want to say that my husband, who is the producer of this show, sent a video today. His first time going around the giant roundabout at M72 and M22.
Yes.
And it was magical.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do it yet, but he took a video and it was magic.
I've gone through it. I think it works well. It seems effective. If you don't know how to use a roundabout, it may be less effective, but I think people are going to have to learn. I mean,
wait, how do you use a roundabout? That's what everybody wants to know.
I know. Well, I'll give you the quick tip is to you don't have to stop. You just have to yield. And it's helpful to use your turn signal when you're exiting the roundabout so people oncoming and behind you know what you're doing and stick in your lane. But other than that, I've just seen a lot of hard stops, which you, again, don't need to do. The goal is to keep the traffic flowing. Just
you do have to hard stop if someone is right there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You do not have to hard stop if no one is coming towards you, which I have still seen happen. So people will get the hang of it eventually. But
my mom went through her first roundabout about 5 years ago. And she didn't understand. Yeah. And she went all the way across.
Oh, that's one way to get there.
And now Orla Frost is a master person who understands roundabouts very well.
Yeah,
So.
and some people like to just keep going because they don't know how to get out of it, and that happens too, and that's fine.
Fun. That's just fun. I've done that a few times. Traffic circles, baby. Am I right? Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about traffic right now and about what the Road Commission has planned for the future of Cedar Run and Gray, which is a very busy place to be in the morning and in the afternoon and in the evening. Also Long Lake, Straight Road, 3 Mile and Potter, Frankie. Give us the details of what's happening on our roads.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief on these. There's a lot of good details on these. These are all intersections that people talk about a lot and care about. So if you want to dig into those more, you can go to trevorsticker.com. But 3 of those intersections were discussed by the Road Commission last week in regards to safety. So Cedar Run and Gray is one of them. That intersection has seen a lot of traffic, in part because of the detours due to the M72 and M22 construction. Sure. So that's letting up a little bit now that roundabout is done. But there have been temporary lights in place at Gray and Harris. One of the conversations from the Road Commission is putting some funding in the 2026 budget. They would like to, they have some leftover equipment that's going to be coming, signal equipment because of the changes that are happening in front of West High School.
Oh, sure.
They're doing a signal modernization work there right now this week through December. That project will give them some signal equipment that they can put in at another intersection, and Cedar Run Gray is the intersection they're looking at for that. I think the temporary light that has been there has shown how that could potentially work. The temporary signal doesn't detect cars, but a new signal would. So they talked and kind of agreed that they're potentially going to put some money in that budget next year to be able to put some turn lanes in at that intersection, which would be required to help that signal run efficiently, and maybe put a light up at Cedar Run Gray. They did talk about Harris. I think there's less interest in a light for Harris. Harris is on a hill, so having people stop there in the winter can cause problems if they're sliding backwards. And also, having lights close together can be a challenge. They discussed the possibility of in the future maybe putting a roundabout at Harris or even punching Zimmerman all the way through to Harris, which would alleviate some crosstown traffic.
If you've ever tried to turn left onto Cedar Run from Harris, I mean, it's like, you're just like saying a prayer and doing it. Yeah,
lefts. And there was a recent safety audit of Cedar Run Road that was pretty bad. There have been 35 crashes in that corridor in a 4-year period. It has an F grade for the Gray and Harris intersections for safety. So these are some possible changes that could be coming at least to Gray with a signal in 2026. They also talked about the kind of North Long Lake Road, straight East Long Lake Road. We're talking about the area right around Fresh Coast and Moomers. Which Moomers itself is a driver of a lot of, it's full, it's a popular destination, but that's also a lot of conflict points there. The intersections are slightly offset. So you're coming off East Long Lake, you're trying to turn, people are trying to turn in and out of Moomers. So the challenge there is they talked about things they could do. They talked about a signal there. There's a little worry about slowing the commuter traffic on Long Lake by putting a signal in. And sometimes when you slow traffic down, it pisses people off, to be honest. And then they drive even worse. So that is a thing you've got to look at, is like when you slow them down, sometimes they get mad. And the challenge with Long Lake is that what they really want to do is put in what's called a peanut roundabout there.
Ooh, peanuts.
Which is also, sometimes it's called a dog bone. It's really 2 roundabouts that are kind of close together and have like sort of a narrow boulevard between them. The roundabouts would be at the entrance of Straight and East Long Lake, and that is the preferred safety design for that corridor. Those kind of roundabouts are expensive. They've tried for 2 years in a row to get grant funding and have been turned down. And their worry is if they put in, a cheap signal, that will actually make their application grade go even further down, because now they've done something to address safety in the corridor, and the applications are graded on need.
Can I ask you this, though? If people can't figure out how to use a regular standard roundabout, like the good old-fashioned OG kind, how are we going to teach them how to use a peanut roundabout? Like, seriously. I mean, it's like 2 roundabouts, but it's not. And you're just going to go, what is happening?
Yeah.
Think it's a figure 8? Like, is that what they're going to do?
I think we have enough roundabouts in the region now that people are going to just have to get on board whether you like them or not. They are efficient. They from a safety perspective, they do work better, but you just have to get used to it. So I think in the meantime, what's going to happen is they're going to put some money in the budget next year for traffic intersection studies for the North Long Lake Road area. and also for 3 Mile and Potter. That was another road that came up last week in the meeting. A resident, an East Bay Township resident, was talking about the number of accidents that happened at 3 Mile and Potter. There was, in fact, just a few weeks ago, a very serious crash that involved multiple cars. They previously, that intersection in the past has not met the warrants that would merit in putting a signal or 4-way stop in. You do actually typically, to put those things in, you look at the amount of traffic an intersection is getting to see if it is, that is warranted. They're going to look at that intersection again, though. They did agree that that is a dangerous intersection. So that's another one. The last project they talked about is Frankie Road, our old favorite Frankie Road.
Frankie Road. I mean, you take your life into your hands when you go on Frankie Road. You're like, is this a portal to another world, or is this a pothole?
To like Mad Max land.
Mad Max land. You're looking around for Mad Max. You know, it's just, yeah.
Well, the two that we've talked about in the ticker that we get the most comments about when we do any kind of road stories are 14th, which got some work this year. It's
Looks good.
little bit better, a little bit smoother, and Frankie. Frankie is exacerbated by the fact that the Montessori school is located there now, and there's sort of an informal arrangement. Their pickup and drop-off area on the school side is not large enough for the amount of traffic they have. And so a lot of parents will park at Meyer, or the bus will come to Meyer, and the kids will run across Frankie Road. Oof. Frankie has a lot of traffic. There's people coming out of the Commons in Silver Lake. There's truck traffic going to Meyer. There's buses coming out of West Middle School, and a lot of people use it as a cut through from Silver Lake to 31.
You got to go to Panera too.
You got to get over to Panera, get over to your Forefront Credit Union, whatever you need to do over there. So Frankie Road needs to be addressed from a condition perspective. The pavement's terrible, but also from a safety perspective with all these kids crossing that road. So they did approve a contract last week for the design work for that. Frankie is going to get construction work happening to it in 2026.
Nice.
And they talked a lot about the safety at that meeting. I will just note that I think there's some frustration and maybe a lack of clarity about who's responsible for some of the improvements.
Yeah.
The road commission expressed a lot of frustration with TCAPs. They felt that school should never have been built on Frankie Road, that it's not the right location for it, that they weren't really consulted, or if they were consulted, their recommendations about not being on that road were ignored. TCAPs, for its part, I talked to John Van Wagner, the superintendent. He noted that himself and a lot of board members were not part of that decision to put the school there. Nonetheless, there are some benefits. It's really close to the middle school, and some of the Montessori kids take classes at the middle school. But he did acknowledge traffic there is a challenge. They would like to get some safe routes to school funding, put in some sidewalks on Frankie, potentially have a designated crosswalk there at Meyer to go to the school so cars can see visually that they need to slow down there. But some of those improvements are up in the air. The road work is going to happen. What happens with all the safety improvements is still to be seen.
I mean, crosswalk, or we could just go, Montessori slingshot, right?
Sure.
Just sit back, kid. We're going to just...
They got in Interlochen, they've got a tunnel going under the road.
They've got a tunnel.
But they're carrying a tuba.
Yeah.
A harp is walking across the road. It's a little different stakes.
Frankie's a little challenging too because it's right near wetlands. So sometimes that makes it, the water table might be a little different there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's possible solutions.
I've always been really surprised that they were able to build that Montessori school there just because of how close it was to the wetlands.
Yes, there was the delineation that happened. It was part of that project. But yeah, so work to come. We'll see something happen to Frankie. They're just right now going to be going through that design and figuring out how safety plays into that.
Well, thank you so much for that story. And as Beth said, go to traversticker.com, look for the story there, read all about it. And we're going to end with one of our favorite things to do, which is a restaurant and retail roundup. Beth does this every few weeks, and big news with J&S.
Oh, yeah.
People woke up and said, they just decided to go back to bed after they read the news that J&S is going to end an 87-year run downtown. Now, let's just keep in mind there are other J&S locations that are owned by others.
Yes, separately
South
owned.
Airport and in Kingsley.
Yep.
So the name isn't going anywhere.
Right.
And the omelets are still available there.
Yes.
But this location is going to be gone.
Yeah. I mean, the downtown diner has been there since 1938. So yeah, very long time. I talked to Cindy Warner, who's the owner of the property. They're, having a pretty emotional last week. A lot of customers coming in for their final meals. Their last day is going to be Sunday. So if you want to get your final burger or shake or omelet, Sunday is going to be your day to do. It's probably going to be pretty busy this weekend. She had put the business up for sale a couple years ago. She was pretty candid about a couple of things. One, that building is quite old. It's almost a century old now. The foundation is shifting. It is basically, she said it's falling down.
Yeah, if you've been in there, you've just been like, wow.
Yeah. Am I safe right now? Yeah. It's old. And honestly, if you can go see, news stories from many years ago, at one point they were going to be, there was a big development that was proposed for the hole in the ground next to the Record Eagle. They were going to be moving into that building at one point. That plan fell through. So she's essentially, she's been trying for a while to do something here. They've got to do something with the building. She didn't end up wanting to sell it. She said the interest came from people who were out of town who didn't really get Traverse City or have developments that she thought were right for downtown. She's going to be redeveloping the site herself. We're going to see that building come down in the coming weeks. She'll be starting on a new building in the spring. She plans to build 8 condos on the upper floors, one of which she herself is going to be in, with enclosed ground floor parking. And then they will be building a new wine bar. Also a plan that she had many years ago when they were going to move next door, and a retail shop facing Front Street.
So wine and charcuterie, right?
Yeah, wine and charcuterie first. She said she hoped it would still be a neighborhood gathering spot. People after work come have a glass of wine, but they'll also have retail sales. So some of the stores in that corridor, like Burritt's and Fogarelli's, close early, so they'll be open later in the evening. And she did say, for folks who are kind of, and I saw a lot of comments, disappointed about J&S talking about the changes downtown. They really tried to keep J&S open. She had offered to give the business to any of her employees if they could reopen it in a new location. She said some of them tried. They looked at the numbers. The real estate is expensive in Traverse City, and a diner is just not a restaurant that generates a lot of revenue for that kind of thing. And also putting it into the new building, if you can just imagine all the smells and smoke of a diner when you've got 8 expensive condos upstairs, they don't really go well together, unfortunately. But as you mentioned, the J&S Hamburg name will live on by the McQueers, who have separate owners.
And they're
Kingsley
fantastic.
and South Airport, so you can still do that.
And that omelet, whichever one you're going to get, is awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly. What else is happening?
Yeah, just a few more I'll mention here as we wrap up. I think one for parents and athletes to kind of pay attention to is this new indoor sports facility that's coming in on Woodmere. It's called Anchor Point Athletics. It's going to be opening in the next couple of weeks. That is a 5,000 square foot training facility. It'll have indoor turf, modular training areas. I mean, they can move and configure the space for different sports, batting cages, a hit track system, which is pretty high tech for people who are training in softball or baseball. These are, Kevin and Melissa Old, they're just parents who had a daughter in softball and got really frustrated trying to find places to reliably practice in the winter.
Wow.
Decided to open it themselves. They're going to have online software for people to be able to schedule times. And they said, a lot of softball and baseball players, but eventually they hope to accommodate everything from lacrosse and soccer drills to even like things like yoga classes, senior movement classes, things like that.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, everything. I mean, lots of other things going on too.
Like Noble Market closing and the Common Grounds. There's lots of updates. So go to TrevorSticker.com and there's lots more in there.
Yes. And I do want to end with saying that the new Four Seasons Music Pavilion is under construction at Lake Ann Brewing Company, my favorite place.
Yeah.
So let's end on a nice note.
Yeah, that's nice. So if you like seeing live music out in Lake Ann, which a lot of people do, that'll be enclosed for year-round use.
Very exciting. So before we go, we like to end the show with a look at what you're doing this week. And Beth, I mean, you have a lot going on this week and weekend. What's going on?
I'm going to mention 2 quick things. So on Saturday, John Heffron, great comedian,
I
playing
love John Heffron.
I know, he's so good. He's playing at the Bay Theater in Sutton's Bay.
Wait,
so
what?
check. I know, and that show's
is
getting close to sold out, and he's sold out before, so you might want to grab your tickets for that. And also, at the City Opera House, Hello Darkness, a fantastic local concert that happens each year. It's so good. The bands are amazing. And I should also just want to plug on Tuesday, it's election day. So if you're in the city of Traverse City, Fife Lake. There's one in Kesson Township in Leelanau. Go vote in your local election on Tuesday. And then Tuesday night, if you want to come down to Rare Bird Brew Pub, yours truly, I host a community trivia night at Rare Bird. We've been there for years, and we have a new season kickoff on Tuesday.
Ooh, that sounds good.
You can win gift cards and all
I
kinds
think
of
this
fun
year I'm
stuff.
coming back to trivia. I know you guys missed me too much.
Yes,
and all of
100%.
my extensive knowledge.
Yeah, you must be a ringer in local trivia. You're not.
I mean, local trivia maybe, but everything else, everyone's just like, what's your value?
Yeah, I am
I
there.
think you're undervaluing yourself a little bit.
That's where I'm at in trivia. Unless you're talking about townships, like I don't
I know,
no
it was
idea.
like, you're going to know everything
I'll
about
get some
townships.
zoning township questions in there this week.
That would actually be hilarious. I love that.
I'll be there. Whatever prize it is, you can just write my name on it.
Austin, how about you? What are you doing that you're looking forward to this week?
Yeah, this is going to be a great week. First of all, I think this comes out on Halloween.
Yeah,
so
it comes out tomorrow.
That's
I mean,
cool.
Yeah.
today.
Yeah,
Halloween.
Everybody loves Halloween, but next Wednesday, you can come to Identity Brewing at 6:30, and Points North, Interlochen Public Radio's podcast,
Yes.
is having a live presentation of their podcast. And
So they're going to like record it live?
no, it's not quite like that. So this is like a ramping up period, I think, for these live radio events. And so what's going to happen is they're going to play the podcast. And it's an amazing story. It's a story, Ellie Katz put it together. It's about this boat that survived the storm that the Edmund Fitzgerald went down in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's going to be great. Jerry Dennis is there. He's written extensively about it. He'll be there to answer some questions.
Oh, that'd be
but
great.
you're going to be able to get, I've been to a live event like this
Yeah.
where they just push play and there's no screen, but you're being immersed in the story. And it's so great.
Oh,
People
that's
are
such
kind
my
of,
jam.
they're kind of like looking around. People are making eye contact. Like there's, like, wow, I wasn't expecting to hear that. It's just a completely different kind of event.
I love just listening. I love audio like that. And to do it in a room full of people must be really fun.
Yeah.
Plus, we love IPR and Points North. So
I
it'll
was
be
talking
great.
to Dan Wanshur about that, and he was reckoning back to the days before I was alive, probably most, and a lot of people listening, where you would hunker around the radio,
Yeah, you
you know,
would.
and just listen together. It's a completely different animal than watching a screen together. So
Absolutely.
yeah, come on out for that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm super excited. I'm wearing my Halloween
You are.
clothing
Very festive.
today. I am a big, big lover of Halloween. It's my favorite time of year. So, so this is my jam. I'm looking forward to Halloween. I'm hosting Halloween trick or treating tonight with my the kids in my family. So like my nieces and nephews. My grandkids are coming up. It's going to be this big deal. And then my friends are coming over. So it's going to be like a fun hodgepodge of people.
What are you
I'm
going to be?
excited. I'm not dressing up. So I do it up with the decorations. But I probably like put on some sort of costume. I actually have a costume closet.
Oh,
So if anybody is coming to my party and doesn't have a costume, you can borrow one. But I've stopped dressing up a couple of years ago, I think. It's just like I like to decorate and I like to host, but maybe not so much dress up.
I'm gonna be a peanut roundabout.
That's perfect.
Nice.
I'm also super excited. I'm attending the Honor Flight fundraiser at the Traverse City Country Club, so that's something that will be good. Honor Flight is really interesting. It's a very impactful organization that actually flies veterans of war to Washington, D.C. so they can see the monuments that actually were, erected for them.
Beautiful.
So not a lot of World War II, unfortunately, these days, but they're really ramping up efforts for the Vietnam and Korean wars. So it's a really cool thing. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to see the last Rocky Horror Show performance at Old Town Playhouse at 11 o'clock, and I might die. I don't stay up that late, so we'll see. If I'm not here this next week, this is why, okay? I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, Beth Milligan and Austin Rowlader, for another great show. We're going to be back next week with special guest Craig Manning from the Leelanau Ticker. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all the platforms at crystalfrost.com. You can follow us on social media. You can subscribe to Crystal currently with Crystal Frost wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the full show on YouTube and Facebook. Currently is a Compass Local podcast produced in Traverse City by Pancake Boy Productions. Big thanks to our sponsors, Old Town Playhouse and the Coin Slot, and to our lead supporter, West Shore Bank. See you next week.